Good morning, you guys. We are back again with Kicking Cancer Cares on KSLM Radio. And our sponsor for the second half is Venti's Restaurant.
You are so excited about the sponsorship.
I just love that we have two awesome food places that just they're focused on health and community. And so it's just really awesome.
You know
I'm
what's
excited.
even more awesome? We're going to Venti's next week.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to have a Buddha burger. Or their beer cheese. Oh, my God. Their beer cheese like soup. It's phenomenal.
Next week, we're going to go to Venti's.
Oh, that's so exciting. So I'm really obsessed with like fries and potatoes and tater tots. So
Sweet potato fries.
they're just my jam. And they've got house tots, house fries, Venti's spicy tots, sweet potato fries, crispy truffle fries, red curry fries. And they've got truffle ribbon chips. And yes, their sweet potato fries are so good with the little honey glazed over them and coconut flakes. Oh my gosh. So good.
You're excited for next week, aren't you?
I cannot wait. Oh, yeah. I cannot wait.
Well, something really exciting happened during the commercial break.
Yes.
We have a guest on the phone with us from Australia.
Yes.
And this is John Withers. But moving forward, because we have John Jackson in the studio with us. So this is Oregon John and Aussie John.
Okay.
And welcome to the show, Aussie John.
Thank you very much, Baron. Thank you for the introduction.
Yes. So what I want to get into, Aussie John, is in the first half of the show, Oregon John did a great job of describing these forever story that you could create in your company, so cool. And we're so excited to be working alongside you. But we also talk about the fact that we have about 80 stories on our website, and I know that John Jackson here has contacted several of them. They've started creating some forever story to share. We want to create a link from our website that will take them to the forever story website to see the video. Except these don't have to be just cancer stories. And I had asked Aussie John if you would share a couple of really good examples. The first one I wrote down here is a way to reconnect to your childhood. Can you share a good example of that, John?
Absolutely. So many people like to create stories from their early memories because they've got the photos and it's easy to start with. So what happens is that they'll pick up a photo that they haven't seen for a long time and they will start creating just a very basic story about their childhood, what was in the photo, because most of the photos that we do have multi-generations in it. Their grandparents, our uncles, aunties, cousins, etc., people that we haven't contacted for a long time. But what also happens, and this is a rather surprise to even me, is that some people, their early childhood isn't, although it's surrounded by wonderful memories, wasn't exactly perfect. It wasn't exactly scripted, and life is like that. We don't have perfect moments. And then some people just want to leave those memories in the boxes and just, they know they've got them, but they don't revisit them. In this particular case, this person wanted to create a forever story. They wanted the easiest way to start it, which was a childhood photo that we both shared, or I shared my own, to be honest. And then what happened is that when they got to one of their stories, they remembered all the good things that happened, all the wonderful things, where as in for nearly 4 decades, ignored the photos because there was some, shall we say, moments that weren't perfect. Mm-hmm. So what had happened is that this person reconnected with their childhood and reconnected with all the wonderful stories and chose to remember what mattered in those stories and transforming their own perspective over many decades, which they ignored. Then all of a sudden, it wasn't just 1 or 2 photos, it was actually at least 50 photos that had wonderful stories, reconnected them with their grandparents, reconnecting with their own parents, and all those wonderful stories around the holidays and events that you really do want to make a difference with. And this has transformed the perspective of the person, what I call a storyteller, into a new level of understanding, because it is virtually, when we look at a photo, we're actually looking at a mirror of our memories and ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I can think of some instances in my own life as a kid, which, here I am at 61 years old remembering something that happened 50, 55 years ago. Well, over time, like John said, the memories are like, that wasn't the greatest event. Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden, as I began looking at pictures, like John was just saying, I was like, wait a minute, that was really kind of fun. And, and I think about a couple Christmases that I have pictures that I found where we would sit around. And of course, this would have been back in the 70s. And I found a picture of a train set that I got when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And so all these memories about the not so pleasant parts of my childhood got erased by a few pictures.
Right.
Well, why not capture those memories in a forever
Did you
story?
have the racetrack too?
I did. Apparently you did too.
Oh, yeah. The little hand control. Oh, yeah.
John, have you found that a lot of people, when they begin to connect, it actually is almost therapeutic in fixing those bad memories?
Oh, absolutely, because it's sort of, we all seem to remember the not so pleasant stuff because it's just one of those things that stick in our mind. But when you get those triggers to go look at it through a different lens, to look at it through a different process, and also you want to keep that memory for the next, your own children or their grandchildren, all of a sudden you start realizing that you're right. The Christmases, the family gatherings, the weddings, and all the wonderful things that went on, and the Thanksgivings, where you just sat around and heard 1,000 stories 1,000 times, but you wish you could hear them one more time. So yes, it's very therapeutic.
The other one that you mentioned to me, John, was you called it a call before Christmas. I think this is very interesting what happened. You mentioned Christmas memories a minute ago. Tell us the story about this call before Christmas, John.
Yes, this was one of those very unexpected moments. So I got a request for a Zoom call to have a talk to one of our storytellers. When I refer to storytellers, people call them users. I really don't like that. We're all storytellers. It's what we do. So anyway, with this particular event is that one of our storytellers called me up for a Zoom meeting, and no problems. I'm happy to help anytime I can. And when I got onto the Zoom call, the whole family was there. There was like 6, 7 people there. And I was going, wow, what's going on here? And then they were telling me the story that they were in a tragic event where they lost everything. Their house, all the contents of the house, their car, everything was gone in this tragic event. In fact, the whole street had lost all of the houses and everything.
This was the Florida floods, right? I believe it was the Florida floods, straight just before Christmas. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So basically, it was very emotional because obviously it was quite raw. And as they were explaining to me, they got away with their clothes and virtually their pets. And then I was thinking, what could I possibly do for these people? Because they were explaining that they lost all the memories. There are 3 generations of stories, of photos, some letters, some old VHS footage was all gone. And then the mum turned around and said thank you to me, because what had happened is that before the holidays, before this event, she created a Forever Story, made everything digital, and put it up onto Forever Story, thinking after the holidays that she could have some time to put some stories together. And the fact is that although they lost all the original photos and all the memorabilia that they had, which is absolutely heartbreaking, they now still have the digital copies, and the comfort and the thankfulness was very overwhelming for everybody.
I bet.
You mentioned something that happened just real recently here in California, and those horrible fires that just hit California, and how many families down there, houses are just completely destroyed. And I know for me, so many of my memories are in scrapbooks. And if a fire had taken my house out, gone.
Yeah.
But now it's stored in a Forever Story, and fortunately for this lady's case you're just talking about, she did do it before those floods hit. There was something we had a guest a few weeks ago, John, that he was actually in New York when 9/11 hit. His job was in the financial district, and he told us about coming off the subway right after the first tower had been hit, and everyone's confused what's going on. So he goes into his office, he's in the 39th floor, as the plane hit the second tower. And we were able to, we have an amazing production lady, Ashlie, that found some awesome pictures that we were able to reshare. And there's a whole generation of kids that weren't even born before 9/11. So we were able to share that. But can you imagine if Manny could go back and create a forever story of that day?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
That would be, yeah.
So these are just awesome. I know that John's working with a lot of our people. You mentioned Yuli.
Yeah.
So this is something we haven't told her story yet, but I was connected with this lady down in LA, and we were able to tell her story on our website, except she went through a pretty horrific cancer situation herself, and she has created a group down there called Cancer Kinship. Now what's interesting is when you see her picture, it's a C and a K, where ours is a K and a C, right? But it's Cancer Kinship, and it's a really big support group that she's created in the LA Basin area. But you've connected with her already and sharing some of that stuff.
And they provide wigs to women that are going through chemo.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This is all, so one of my nephews that lives with me, he lost everything of his childhood, and completely everything is gone. And photos is actually something that he grasps onto. And so he had the family send him what we could. And even now with his friends, he sends me probably once a month a bulk thing of photos, like, hey, please print these off. And he has a photo wall. And I think it's because of that trauma of losing all of his photos. And he's just a 15-year-old.
Normally kicks you into action.
Yeah. And so something like this, for him to just create almost just a this is my life type of thing of right now would even be awesome.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. There's I have so many ideas just stemming off of what you could do with your forever stories and how they could be so sentimental.
We had another guest probably a year ago that came in. His name is Dave Wentz. I know you know where I'm going with this. So Dave Wentz at like 19 was pulled into the Vietnam War. And his job, he was actually technically never in Vietnam. He was in Cambodia and Laos. And his job was actually to go find POW camps. And he and his group were so disliked by the North Vietnamese that there was a bounty on his head. He was shot down 4 times. The 4th time, the shoulder-mounted rocket hit the wing of the plane, and it took the wing off, so it sends the plane to this tailspin, and he gets thrown against the fuselage and knocks him unconscious for months. Comes back in the early 70s. He starts advocating for vets over the last 40 years, and in 2019, he gets diagnosed with cancer and was given 3 months to live. He is currently on the East Coast visiting family. This guy has, and he was diagnosed with testicular cancer, didn't catch it in time. It began to spread. The treatment was pretty brutal. He's now dealing with cancer again. It's in his throat now. And he's like, I'm not going through that brutal treatment again. And I really want Dave Wentz to connect with you guys, because beyond the cancer, the Vietnam stories that he can share and capture that in a forever story. So I want the listeners to realize there is a lot of cancer stories, but there's a lot of childhood stories. There's a lot of military stories. There's a lot of stories that you can tell.
Absolutely.
We've got time, Ozzy John. We've got time. Do you have one more that just sticks in your head? One more that you'd like to share with us?
I'm actually going to share my own.
Oh, perfect.
I love it.
So what had happened is that it's interesting. As a creator of Forever Story, the visionary, with a whole bunch of people, wonderful people inside the business creating things, I get to show my parents photos and albums and everything else through Forever Story, because quite simply, I know where people are looking at my mum's or my dad's, and my dad's a Vietnam veteran as well. So it's sort of like they see their own parents in their own photos. But every now and then, it actually catches me off guard to see my own mum's story, to see myself as a child, to reminisce over the process. And it's really funny because there's no actual rules about it. It just happens. You can show people 100 times, and there's just one particular time whether it be you're in some place or somebody sharing another story with you, that you actually catch yourself on your own stories. And the example would be is that back to the veterans, as you were saying, I was sharing my father's journey because I was young enough to remember my father leaving for Vietnam, but also when he returned a veteran. And he was a slightly different person, as we all know, like everybody does. Mm-hmm. But the thing is here is that when you share it with other veterans and other children that had this, you become very quickly bonded and related. So in other words, what happens is that every now and then when you're at your own store, you'll create one for your parents or somebody else or even a pet, it still catches you off guard. And it's actually wonderful. It's emotional, but it's actually wonderful because it's a reminder to yourself and gives you perspective on your own life because there are so many things that are happening all at once. Every now and then we do need that little moment to remind us of whom we are.
Well, you have led us really well into the next topic because you mentioned your dad and the Vietnam. Amanda and I are both wearing gray in memory of Ozzie Brown, and that's a story we told at the first part of this. But John is wearing blue, mm-hmm. and I'd like you to share why you're wearing blue, John.
So I'm wearing blue for colon cancer.
Yep.
My father was a colon cancer survivor. And his story is slightly different because my parents came from a different generation where everything was so private. There was no sharing of information, no anything. So my first exposure to my dad having cancer was he showed up at my football game. I was 12 years old, and he showed up at my football game in a wheelchair.
Oh, my gosh.
Like my mom, he had gone through all the treatment, had major surgery.
But you didn't. But didn't share that with you.
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. Showed up at the football game in a wheelchair.
Wow.
Said that I used to have cancer.
I used to have cancer.
But you didn't know about the process.
We didn't know any of it. None of it at all.
That is.
None of it at all.
My grandma, she had some health issues, and she didn't really tell my mom and dad, or my mom, which is her daughter, or my uncle. She didn't really tell them. She was going to get chemotherapy treatments and things like that, and she wouldn't tell them.
I remember being like 30 or something like that and going to the doctor, and the doctor saying that, you have colon cancer in your family. And I'm like, what?
You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've had any number of colonoscopies now. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks.
Again. So...
Well, and what's interesting is I went in to get a colonoscopy, and it really is... I didn't even know what happened. There's just like, you go out, they put you asleep, and they do the colonoscopy, and you wake up. It's not painful because you're not even awake.
You're not even awake,
mm-hmm.
Right? There's a gentleman that you will meet at our honoring evening who has called into our show.
Okay.
Rob Malacote.
Okay.
That played baseball.
Oh, no way. That's cool.
Remember Rob?
Yeah.
So Rob, I really want to connect you with Rob because Rob and I went to high school together. He was a really good pitcher, and right out of high school, he gets drafted to play for the Houston Astros.
Okay.
He told me this recently. He was a backup pitcher for Nolan Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
I'm like, dude, that's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Right? But then baseball ends, and he goes into the techie world and starts with computer programming and sales and blah, blah, blah. And at 55, he goes in for his routine colonoscopy to find out that he has stage 4.
Wow.
Stage 4 colon cancer that has spread to his liver and his lungs.
Whoa.
And you will meet him. Will be at the honor.
So he survived.
He has survived.
He beat it then.
And he has not beat it. He has not beat
Still
it.
fighting.
He's still fighting.
Okay.
He's still fighting. But he had the chance to come down last year. I worked at the baseball stadium, and he got to throw out the first pitch. He said it was just so fun reliving being there on the baseball stadium, But in his case, there's a lot of stories there. There's baseball stories. There's cancer stories. And it was a routine colonoscopy. He had no idea he had stage 4 cancer.
That's bizarre.
And not just, he calls it the trifecta, right? Stage 4 colon, stage 4 liver, and stage 4 lung.
Man.
All at the exact same time.
When did he get diagnosed?
5 years ago.
Okay, so yes, that's
Yeah,
right. It's
yeah,
ringing a bell. That's
yeah.
right. Okay.
It's been a while ago since he called
Yeah.
in.
Okay.
But he sent me a little update. It's going to be in one of our upcoming quarterly newsletters.
Awesome.
Of how he's doing. He says he tackled his cancer the same way he did baseball. Positive attitude and whatever it took.
Amen.
You've been to, obviously, Mark.
Yeah.
And you've been to Cancer Conquering Community.
Yeah.
And some of the stories on their channel, just
Yeah.
amazing. Just
I mean, another
people
one.
beating terminal cancer time and again.
Yeah.
Just
You know.
multiple times.
Yeah.
Another one that I'm excited for both of these Johns to connect with is Boyd Dunleavy, who called
I know
in.
Boyd.
So he knows.
From
So
Canada,
Boyd,
yeah.
So
I know
Boyd
Boyd.
gets diagnosed with blood cancer, beats it, and he's getting ready to do another Boston Marathon.
He's
course
done like
he is.
17 marathons.
Of course.
something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
He's running all over the place.
After beating blood cancer. he said,
Amazing.
marathon after marathon, and that was a fun story for us to tell. But again, we tell the stories through a radio show that goes to podcast and now a YouTube channel as well. But you're creating digital forever stories. So for the listeners, I'm going to refer this one to Ozzy John. For the listeners that are out there, if someone would like to get a hold of you guys and have their story as a forever story, how do they do that, and what does it cost?
Okay, so they just go to foreverstory.com. That's the number for everstory.com. And to create just one story, it's $49.95. That allows you to do 250 photos with little narratives, unlimited amount of words that you want to create into the story, including links that you can actually do hyperlinks on. You can also have up to 15 videos with a little bit of narratives around it, and also a timeline attached to it. So you can create a chronological date timeline that has narratives and photos attached to it, so you can walk through that. Also, you can put a lot of other information. You can invite people along, and inside of it, if you're creating your own, you're also able to create your own forever message. And that is basically a video telling people, and some people do take this up, where they tell people how much they love them and let them know that regardless of wherever they are, it's going to be okay. So it's a very comforting message that we've included in our product, so people can just tell other people a direct story or things like that, because just in case something happens, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
It does.
In fact, I had the pleasure just last week of meeting this lady here in Kaiser. She and her mother came over to our store to buy two blue shirts,
Okay.
because Lacey Rossi was diagnosed with colon cancer last year, and they have done all they can. They can't stop this thing from spreading, and she is now terminal. I have connected her family with Scott Mills,
Okay, yeah.
because they're in a spot they need hospice, right? And she's come to grips with the fact that she is going to die. She has until about April, and she is going to pass away. Her mother is a little distraught about the whole thing, but wouldn't it be amazing if Lacey could actually leave a message for her kids?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Right?
You make me emotional just thinking about it. Yeah. that would
Because
be-
because she has two kids that are in their 20s, and her husband's not dealing with it well, right? But if you could leave a video like John just said
Yeah.
of, I love you guys, and I've got one more month to live.
Yeah.
Like this kind of product just has so many amazing things people can do for their loved ones.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be all right. Well, John, thank you for calling in. I don't know. I know it's probably early in the morning for you tomorrow, but appreciate you calling in from Australia and sharing how people can get on. Once again, I'm going to ask Oregon John this. How do they find your website, and how do they get involved?
So just like John said, we are foreverstory.com, the number 4, everstory.com, or you can reach out to John or myself directly. It's very easy. It's John at foreverstory.com for Aussie John,
Okay.
or it's JohnJ at foreverstory.com for Oregon John.
There you go.
Okay.
Very simple.
Very.
And if you miss any of that, you can always email Amanda at
KSLM.news, and I will give you guys all of the John's information.
There you go. There you go.
Well, John, thanks again for calling in from Australia and sharing this amazing product that you guys have developed in a way for people to share their stories.
Just if you go to foreverstory.com and you click on Explore Stories, then you'll see my mom's story.
Okay.
And John's mom's story.
Okay.
And David Russell, our 104-year-old Pearl Harbor survivor.
Yep.
His story is on there, so you can scroll through and see some other stories that people have created.
That's cool to kind of give you an idea
Absolutely.
of what to expect
Absolutely.
and how to help create it. Okay, that's
Absolutely.
awesome. Perfect.
Yeah, and I know that as the founder of Kicking Cancer, I'm excited to be working alongside these guys. They're just, I found ways to tell people's stories through writing. To be able to add the video component to it is
Huge.
just unbelievable for us. So.
Agreed.
Well.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And a huge shout out to our sponsor for the second half is Venti's Restaurant. Absolutely amazing. We will be there next week. Is that right?
Next week.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for the camera to capture all the pictures and videos of all the good
food.
food.
And you eating all the food.
I will eat it all. Every single bite. All right, you guys, we'll be back next week as the movement continues.